Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 1.
A few years ago, a young delivery driver named Kyle worked at a Domino's in a quiet suburban town. Most of his shifts were uneventful, dropping off pizzas to families, students, or late-night workers. But one night, he got an order that never left his mind. It came in just before closing, a large order for a house at the far edge of town. The address wasn't familiar, but it was on the maps, so he loaded the pizzas and went out. When he pulled up, the house was in near darkness except for a faint glow in the upstairs window. The yard was overgrown, and there were no cars in the driveway. Kyle knocked on the door, but no one answered. He called out, announcing the delivery, and after a long pause, the door slowly creaked open. A woman's voice from inside whispered, "Leave it on the table in the hall." Kyle stepped inside cautiously. The air smelled strange, like mildew and something metallic. He set the pizzas on a dusty table just a few feet inside and waited for payment. The woman's voice came again, low and trembling. "Cash is on the counter in the kitchen. Please, hurry." He didn't want to linger, but needing the money, he stepped farther into the house. The hall was narrow and lined with old photographs where the faces had been scratched out. His footsteps echoed, though the floor was carpeted. He reached the kitchen, and on the counter was a stack of bills neatly arranged. But beside it was something that made his stomach turn, an old Domino's delivery bag, stained dark with a name tag still clipped to it. He picked up the cash quickly and turned to leave. That's when he heard it. From the basement below, a muffled cry, like someone trying to scream with their mouth covered. Frozen, Kyle's mind raced. He wanted to run, but before he could, the front door slammed shut on its own. The woman's voice came again, closer this time, but it wasn't trembling anymore. It was steady. "Thank you for coming. You always come." Kyle bolted for the door, yanking it open and sprinting to his car. He didn't look back, didn't stop until he was halfway back to the store. He told his manager what happened, but when they checked the order history, there was nothing. No record of a delivery placed to that address. A week later, Kyle quit Domino's altogether. He later found out from a coworker that years back, another driver had gone missing after taking a late delivery near that same street. The case was never solved. Kyle swears that to this day, he can still hear that faint cry in his head whenever he drives past an empty house at night.
Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 2.
It was around 11:30 p.m. when Jason, a Domino's delivery driver, got his last order of the night. The ticket was strange right away. 5 large pizzas and 2 bottles of soda, all going to a rundown house on the edge of town. He delivered to that neighborhood before, but this particular address made him pause. It was on a dead-end road, surrounded by trees with no streetlights. The house had been empty for years, as far as he knew. But the order was paid for in advance, so there wasn't much he could do except take it. The drive out there was unsettling. The further he went, the darker it got. The houses thinned out until there were none, just that one sagging place at the end of the lane. The porch light was off, but the front door was slightly open. Jason killed the engine, grabbed the bags, and tried to shake the unease crawling up his spine. He called out, "Domino's!" but got no answer. The crickets outside were the only sound. Stepping onto the porch, the smell hit him first. Something rotten, like meat left in the sun. He froze, every instinct telling him to leave, but his job told him to at least drop the pizzas off. He pushed the door open a little wider, shouting again. His voice echoed into a hollow silence. Finally, he set the pizzas on a dusty hallway table just inside and turned to leave. That's when he heard it. Footsteps upstairs, slow and deliberate, as if someone was waiting for him to react. Jason didn't want to wait around to find out who it was. He hurried back to his car, heart pounding, and slid behind the wheel. But when he reached for the keys he had left in the ignition, they were gone. He hadn't noticed anyone near him, yet they weren't there anymore. He looked up, and in the reflection of the driver's side mirror, he saw movement in the upstairs window. A figure was standing there, completely still, staring down at him. Panicked, Jason bolted out of the car and ran back toward the road. His phone had no service, and the house sat too far from the next nearest street. He could hear footsteps behind him now, heavier, faster. closing in. When he glanced back, the porch light was on, even though it hadn't been before, and the pizzas he left inside were now stacked neatly on the porch rail, untouched. He made it to the corner of the road when a set of headlights appeared. Another Domino's car pulling up with a confused driver holding a single pizza box. Jason tried to flag him down, but before he could reach the car, he saw the other driver's face twist in horror as he looked past Jason toward the house. The driver dropped the pizza, jumped back into his car, and sped off, leaving Jason alone in the dark. By the time police investigated, the house was confirmed empty and had no electricity running to it. Jason's car was found locked with the keys inside, and the pizzas were gone. Jason himself was never found, and according to Domino's records, the order had been placed from his own phone number.
Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 3.
It was late one Friday night in a quiet suburb of Ohio when a Domino's delivery driver named Marcus pulled into an apartment complex with his last order of the night. The place was eerily silent, the kind of stillness that feels unnatural. He checked the address again, apartment 3B, and carried the pizza box up the dimly lit stairwell. The hall smelled faintly of mold and bleach. When he reached the door, he noticed it was slightly ajar. Marcus knocked anyway, calling out, "Domino's delivery." No answer. He pushed the door open a little, thinking maybe someone had just forgotten to close it all the way. Inside, the living room was in complete disarray. Chairs knocked over, blinds half torn from the windows, and the faint flicker of a TV playing static. A strange heaviness filled the air, like something had happened here recently that didn't belong to him. But now he was part of it. Just as he turned to leave, a voice from deeper inside called out, "Come in, the money's on the table." Relieved, he stepped inside cautiously. The box of pizza felt suddenly heavy in his hands. On the dining table near the kitchen, there was indeed a $20 bill, but something was wrong. Beneath it, the table was sticky, and when he leaned closer, he realized it wasn't spilled soda. It was blood. The voice spoke again, this time closer, almost at his ear. "Thanks for bringing dinner." Marcus spun around, but no one was there. His heart raced. The front door slammed shut behind him with a force that rattled the windows. He dropped the pizza box, the lid popping open to reveal that the toppings were smeared with something dark, something that didn't look like sauce. Panicked, he tried to bolt, but the hallway was impossibly long now, stretching further than it had when he entered. From one of the bedroom doors, something shuffled out slowly. Marcus caught just a glimpse, a tall figure, face obscured by shadow, but with pale blood-slicked hands reaching toward him. The static from the TV grew louder, like it was inside his head. He ran, stumbling through the warped hallway until he finally burst back into the stairwell. The door slammed shut behind him with such force it nearly knocked him down the stairs. He didn't stop running until he reached his car, speeding away without looking back. The next morning, Marcus returned with police, shaken but desperate to prove he wasn't imagining it. They climbed to apartment 3B, but when the landlord unlocked the door, the place was completely empty. No furniture, no TV, no blood, just dust and peeling wallpaper. The landlord insisted no one had lived there in years. Marcus quit Domino's the next day, and to this day, he swears he still hears that voice sometimes when he passes by apartment buildings late at night. Thanks for bringing dinner.
Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 4.
There was a young man named Eric who worked late nights as a delivery driver for a Domino's in a small town. He took the job because the tips were decent, and he didn't mind driving alone in the quiet hours. But there was one night he said he would never forget. It was close to midnight when the order came through, a large pizza, breadsticks, and soda. The address was strange. It wasn't in the system's normal delivery range, but his manager insisted he take it anyway, since the customer had prepaid and tipped well. The address led him to the far edge of town, past the last gas station, down a stretch of unlit back roads. His GPS kept glitching, rerouting him, but eventually he found himself in front of an old, dilapidated house. The porch light was on, though dim, and the blinds were drawn tight. Eric grabbed the pizza bag and walked to the door. He knocked. No answer. He rang the doorbell, but instead of a chime, there was only a faint buzzing sound like broken wiring. He called out, "Domino's delivery," but silence lingered. Just as he was about to leave, the door creaked open a few inches. The inside was completely dark. He froze, waiting for someone to come forward. After a few seconds, a raspy voice said from inside, "Just leave it on the table." The problem was, he couldn't see a table. He couldn't see anything in there at all. Eric hesitated, trying to decide if he should step inside. Then he heard it, a sound, faint but clear, someone breathing heavily just a few feet away in the dark. He set the pizza down on the porch instead and backed away. That's when the voice said again, sharper this time, "No," inside. It sent chills down his spine. Something about the tone didn't sound like a normal customer. It was more like a demand. Eric shook his head and said firmly that he'd leave it outside. The breathing grew louder. Then, without warning, the door slammed shut. Eric sprinted back to his car. As he fumbled with the keys, he looked up and saw a figure standing at one of the upstairs windows, completely still, staring down at him. The porch light flickered and went out. He floored the gas and didn't stop driving until he was back at the store. Later that night, shaken, he mentioned it to his manager. The manager frowned and asked to see the address again. When Eric showed him, the manager's face went pale. He said that house had burned down years ago and was abandoned ever since. The system shouldn't have even accepted the order. Eric swore he never took another delivery past midnight after that night, and to this day, he says when he drives down that road, he still feels like someone is watching him from the window of that burned-out house.
Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 5.
There's a story from a small college town in the Midwest about a Domino's delivery driver named Eric. He had been working late shifts for almost a year, used to the usual routine, drunk students, families ordering in, and the occasional prank call. But one night, around 1:45 in the morning, he got an order that stood out. The call came in for 3 large pizzas and breadsticks, cash on delivery, to an address on the edge of town. The house wasn't in the system, but the manager insisted he take it because the caller had given very specific directions. Eric drove out past the main roads, the glow of the town fading in his rear view. Eventually, he pulled onto an old, cracked driveway that led to a 2-story house with no lights on inside. He sat there for a minute, the heat of his car humming against the silence outside, before grabbing the pizzas and heading to the porch. When he knocked, the sound echoed through the emptiness. Nobody answered. He called out, "Domino's," but there was still no response. Just as he was about to turn back, the front door creaked open a few inches. Eric froze. There was no one standing in the doorway, no movement, just the black hollow of the house. He cleared his throat, trying to keep his voice steady, and said, "Your pizza's here." Still nothing. Against his better judgment, he stepped closer, pushing the door slightly open with his elbow. That's when he noticed the smell, something sour and rotten, like garbage left out too long. His stomach turned, and every instinct told him to leave, but then he heard something upstairs. A shuffle, slow, deliberate footsteps. He set the pizzas down quickly on the porch and backed away, muttering that he'd leave them there. As he walked toward his car, he glanced up at the second-story window. The curtain shifted, and he swore he saw a pale face staring down at him. He fumbled for his keys, his hands trembling, when suddenly the front door slammed shut with a bang so loud it echoed down the street. Eric didn't wait. He jumped into his car, sped out of the driveway, and didn't stop until he was back under the fluorescent lights of the Domino store. The next day, Eric asked his manager about the order. He wanted to know if the customer ever called back. The manager pulled up the receipt and frowned. There was no record of it in the system, no call, no payment request. It was as if the delivery had never existed. Eric swore he'd taken the call and even remembered the voice. It was flat, almost mechanical, repeating the order slowly like it was being read from a script. Out of morbid curiosity, a week later, Eric drove past the address in the daylight. The driveway was still cracked, weeds crawling through the pavement, but the house itself was abandoned. Windows boarded up, paint peeling from the siding. The mailbox stuffed with months of old flyers. There was no way anyone had been living there. Eric quit his job not long after, and whenever he talks about that night, He says it wasn't just the house that unnerved him. It was that face at the window, expressionless, unmoving, watching him. He swears to this day that it wasn't a mask and it wasn't human.